Calling the meeting to order at 4 o'clock on November 23rd. Open Space Committee, and we are being videoed. We could have Zoomed, but we didn't. All right. The minutes, actually, from the last minute. Can maybe we use up Matt's time so he can get back to work if he, push him up to the beginning of the agenda?
It's okay, I don't mind sticking around.
Yeah.
Okay. Chair, do we have someone to take minutes?
I'm taking them.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. We need a secretary, but we have a backup.
I'm good with taking minutes.
Yeah. All right. Okay, well, then we'll start with the minutes from the last meeting. You want to zoom through?
Yep, March 18th.
Move that we accept the minutes of March 18th as written.
I second that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Accepted. Okay. And, okay, next, we have, the Central Mass Regional Planning Committee has approached us to see if we can get some money, $18,000 from them, and help us finish up the open space plan that Lisa started probably 20 years ago. We've all worked a little bit on it, and it's a little overwhelming, so we'd love their help. They're supposed to contact us in November, but we haven't heard yet.
Nothing.
Yep. So hopefully it's good.
Matt, is that something you could help us follow up on, or
Yes, absolutely.
because maybe a call from you would prod them along?
I would think so. I have many connections at CMRPC.
You know Mimi Kaplan and Trish? Well, Mimi went west,
No
right?
trash.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Can you give her a buzz for
I
it?
sure can.
that would be great.
So do you have that copy of the minutes? It's described right there, basically.
Sure, great.
Is Mimi's gone?
She was she was ending, I think, and was going out to Western Mass, out to Amherst or something.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, and next, number 4, we have this neighborhood outreach grant that is possibly $5,000 maximum.
I have not. Thank you.
So it's a rolling admission kind of thing, so maybe it would be worth contacting them first and then seeing if there's still funding left and put something in. We could certainly use it for signs on conservation land and maps and trails. Does Matt know anyone there? Okay.
I don't think what you just said is not eligible.
Yeah, neighborhood outreach
But-
means,
Yeah, ineligible costs include those related to individual land protection projects, appraisals, title work, physical stewardship costs, tools, dog waste bags, trees and plants, et cetera. And I assume that would be signage
Sign.
and stuff like that. So this is, from my understanding, an outreach to, if there was an area where there was a few owners that had a huge bunch of property, to target them about different ideas to preserve that
Yeah.
property.
Yeah. We've done that in the past, sent out letters to anyone owning, 50 or more acres or whatever, and telling them about the tax breaks and all that sort of thing, but never has anything turned up off that. So. But, I mean, it would be worth it just for the signs. We could, put our heads together and figure out things that might fit into this, package.
well, we could possibly do it in conjunction with another town as well. In a budding town like Sutton or something like that.
If there was land that
Right.
straddled two towns for the defined area.
Yeah. Get the map and see what's, I got a map.
Madam Chair? May I ask a quick?
Mhm.
sorry,
Yeah.
to the- So, what kind of projects are you considering here? And I know you just kind of mentioned that, but including staff and volunteer time, especially volunteer time, do we have any town-owned trails that we have stewards for or would be considered for stewardship and that are on town property? Usually maintenance of those things in towns that I'm familiar with have DPW, the DPW go out and
Yeah.
maintain those. We don't have
I
that.
think you need 10,000 people in the town to get DPW, to your necessity
Right.
to get a DPW, and we don't have that, but yeah, we don't have any. We have a lot of Eagle Scout projects that, put a bridge in or platform, but,
Right.
No maintenance.
Second, as far
Right.
as maintenance goes, it's regular maintenance of trails. Some stewards might be interested in that, and there could be a cost associated. A lot would be volunteers, preferably, but some tend to ask for cost and reimbursement for such. Stewardship programs tend to be something that is popular, especially in the winter months with those that are cross-country skiing. So, I don't know if that's up for consideration. Do we have trails on town property in addition to state
a
property?
few, not a whole lot.
Becky, what about that one at the high school?
Yeah, you get the ones behind the high school that we're actually trying to work on. Because Bay State Shore Rise Association bought a piece of property abutting the Southern New England Trunk Line Trail, which will actually make a connection from the Southern New England Trunk Line Trail through that property to the trails behind the school.
Interesting. Possible consideration there, obviously, you'd like to get high school volunteers.
They were
One.
interested in, setting up a community garden and everything a couple of years ago, but things kind of fell between the cracks.
That's it.
Yeah, but,
I'm thinking things like that, where it said staff and volunteer time, or for eligible costs. I know Douglas is big on their forests and their nature, but there might be an opportunity for maintenance.
yeah,
For one, that's my
Yeah.
initial
No,
thought.
that's a
I'm sure
good
I can
idea.
come up with others.
yeah. That's-
And there are trails on some of our conservation properties.
But nobody
And-
cleans them.
Well, no, then we were looking at the trail off of Southeast Maine, remember the?
Keegan?
Keven, yeah.
Keegan?
Yeah. But there's an access issue there, because the way it doglegged out to the street was very constricted, and then a huge boulders.
Like the cellar holes, boulders went up and along that.
But, to make a more formalized trail, that would be a good possibility for this type of thing.
Okay.
But I don't think this will cover that. This is not those objectives,
Okay.
from what I'm reading.
Yeah, I agree. And we need that kind of engineered, so to speak, or at least laid out on a plan, and that's not going to cover that. It would cover the volunteer time.
For the
Staff.
outreach to landowners.
Right. But it'd be interested to at least start a charrette or some sort of working group for citizens to participate and start the dialogue on that.
Mhm.
Good opportunity.
Trails Committee? Down?
Okay. So we'll take this home with you and look at it and come up with ideas, everybody, and
Well, what's the next step? Because if we don't apply soon, then it'll all be gone.
We have some time. We have till April. We'll
So
complete
It's a
it.
good time to do this kind of thing, because people are more apt to come to meetings.
And I think the existing program that I believe we may have missed, completed by the 15th, was submitted by the 30th, and then final reports by May. I think we're probably looking at the next round. I don't see what is something that we're still eligible for right now. I know it says,
submission deadline,
that's what I'm looking for.
it's at the bottom of the back.
Yeah, rolling basis.
Okay, so there's really no deadline. We're
Yeah.
going to get them as they come. Okay.
But it might be worth, well, I mean, it would be worth doing it just for the next time around if we don't make it this time anyway. Come up with, get the Trails Committee going or something.
Well, this would require looking at a map and who's got big chunks of property that, if they're not under Chapter 61 or anything like that, or
Yeah.
Outreaching to them, contacting them to,
Well, there's two huge landowners, there's a lot of them along the southern border of the town, abutting Rhode Island. There's one that's got, let's see, how many papers here?
I assume our draft open space plan has all of these properties, possible maps to go with it.
Well, that's what we're going to be working on if we get this grant.
We want from CMRPC.
Yeah.
Very good.
Pretty obsolete with the maps in the planning room.
Yeah.
It's still dated information.
Yeah. But on those maps, they've been graded for, good for populating and leaving for conservation, and all along the south border, I was looking just now, is pretty much leave for conservation, but it's wet, and one's like 500 acres, and one's like 300 acres, and then there's probably more along Orange Street that'll come up that we've been going through there, 61A gradually. Last year, we had like 5 meetings for getting rid of a property every other week, But, so, yeah, those people, but we have contacted them in the past. They have ideas for, like horse farms, or they've reached out to various places and nothing has come up for it, but things seem to be turning over more so now.
Sure. All good.
So the next step is look it over, and you want to get it together for another meeting after we kind of come up with our ideas?
good.
Okay.
I could look at the land and get a list together of people.
Well, you can ask for the folks who have land in chapter 61 and then
Yeah.
go around those.
Yep, I'll do that.
Or you can just pull it up. No, I can't remember. Do the assessors have a code in for
Yeah.
61?
We can ask assessors. Sue. Or Matt. Okay. Or people without 61 and large. People with land over 50 acres or 10 acres, you're eligible to, get a tax break.
10 plus, yeah.
But that's, I don't know. We'll see what the cutoff, I'll see where there's large land. Okay, all right, I get a map. So when do we want to meet?
Well,
2 weeks, something?
oh, okay.
Get it in early December and then not have to,
See if there's something out there. Well, if you get a list from Beth or whoever's there and you can circulate it, then maybe we can look at it before we meet again. Have a little better
Okay.
defined idea of what's there.
Yep, and then ideas on what to do to outreach,
Yeah.
to do the outreach.
And then we can decide then when to have the meeting after we've looked it over and everybody's satisfied with their contribution or something.
Sure.
All right.
I think it's important to identify which area, neighborhood, parcel owners specifically prior to kind of assessing the costs as for notification and planning for a meeting. But if we can
No,
pinpoint.
you meant just us, meet again.
Yeah.
Before we do.
Agreed.
Okay. But yeah, we would then need to zero in and figure out how many, what the focus would
I have some ideas. I can get some assessor's information from mailing, reach out to particular landowners, and based on our responses, we can then zero in. Right?
be.
All right. And next, we have a new town planner, Matt Benoit.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Appreciate it. Little,
Where'd you come from?
yeah, I was going to do a little background. So the very first thing, aside from Went to college for regional planning in Westford State, so actually I get to do what I went to school for, which is, I guess, rare nowadays. So.
You went
so-
for regional planning?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It's an odd major, but it's essentially geography.
Yeah, I
law,
went there,
planning, law, so-
urban studies.
Yes?
I wasn't an urban, I was a geography major, but yeah.
That's
I
essentially
was,
the same.
lived with an urban studies
Yeah, it's
major.
called GARP, Geography and Regional Planning.
Yeah.
I didn't know what my major was going to school, and Professor Stephanie Kelly was a city planner in Phoenix. Handed me a map, and I handed back an atlas. She said, you should probably think about this. So, ultimately, I got into planning, and I started working for the town of Auburn. Before I started working there, my first volunteer position was with the Conservation Commission. I'm very protective of open land oriented. That's kind of where I like to protect the natural environment.
Right.
So getting into planning, I've been doing it for about almost 15 years. So I having worked for Auburn for several of them, down in Natick for about this year, and then I got recruited here by not officially recruited by Eve Tapper, who was filling in. She called me asking for people in the area who were interested in the position, and I didn't reach out to anybody because I was interested. So that's kind of how I got on here. So
Good.
I have worked with the town of Auburn in producing their open space plan. Been through all the chapters, all the parcels. We ended up doing an entire town-owned parcel review considered for putting out the auction of preservation and priority preservation areas and such, neighborhood by neighborhood. So as far as open space planning goes and its plan, which is, as you mentioned, complex, I have been through that entire process. I'm happy to help with that.
There's probably, 2/3 of it that's going to be the same,
In most cases, yes. Depending on when your last charrette or the working group was scheduled for soliciting feedback from the public. I don't know any idea when I was. It's been a while.
But we did do a survey
Surveys are great. No, it's good.
recently,
Okay.
so we should get you a copy of that.
Yeah, they're great. No, so it's the inventory and the maps that outsourcing for CMRPC. That's a great idea. We ended up going with a private consultant. Took a little longer, cost us a lot more money. So in the end, it really didn't work in our favor. So I saw the cost that was from CMRPC. Any idea when that was obtained?
That
So
was
like-
August?
It was earlier this year, right?
Yeah.
That might need to be updated, but I'm in touch with Trish, the executive director, talk about that. So I'm happy to help that roll along. It's one of the first questions I had when I had my interview was, do we have an open space and recreation plan? I found it on the server, buried. I just
Yeah.
didn't look complete, so
Yeah.
thank you for confirming that.
I submitted it, and she sent it back going, good start. I'm like,
Yeah,
after all those hours, I was like,
yeah,
Good.
200 pages later, they're like, all right.
Yeah, it
About
was,
30 of them are good.
to me, I was overwhelmed with the computer part of it, just switching page 6 to page 26, and I'm like, oh, forget it.
Yeah, it's not the most fun, but the document itself, they're good for, I think it's 7 years. You're supposed to update it every 7 years.
Yep, and,
Well, incredibly resourceful when it comes to tracking your 61A, especially privately owned land, public property, and eventually you end up finding property that doesn't have any known heirs.
oh, we have that, yeah.
Yeah, end up finding some of those. End up finding paper streets also, which is so much fun.
I was a map maker, I used to make those.
Yeah, you understand. So, is that officially cartographer by trade?
Yeah.
That's great. So, yeah, happy to help with that, and it also helps me learn the town a lot better, and all the little nooks and crannies.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
status of water bodies, also river resource areas, and all
There's a lot of interesting things, like
that. So,
the Bad Luck Pond with an owner unknown because King George just, did like little slices off of it, like a pie for the cedar swamp nearby and things like that.
yeah. So, I was looking forward to this meeting. I'm glad you invited me. So,
Have you ever followed the process of, so if a parcel is deemed ready for tax taking, so that the parcel does not end up going to auction, but that can be steered towards conservation instead?
yeah.
Okay, because we might need some advice on that
Sure.
at some point.
We got together with the treasurer last year, and she gave us a list of all the tax-taking properties, and we went through each one, and she was like, this one might be contaminated, and this, so she was looking for parcels that we would be interested in too.
Sure.
Which is
No, I
great.
understand that. Eventually, the treasurer is going to try to make a recommendation to the selectmen to try to obtain those. It's always good for the open space committee to meet either beforehand or after that letter submitted to the selectmen and write a recommendation. So reviewing those properties in advance is paramount.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that you know which ones you want to
Right.
recommend if and when that letter gets there.
Right.
I would typically always recommend the lots that have some sort of access first, whether it's from another parcel with a trail or actual frontage access, something you consider putting a parking lot. But sometimes you're just looking at swamps, inactive areas that there couldn't possibly be development in the first place. And those are pretty easy to obtain, because those are the ones that people stop paying taxes on, they can't use them.
Right.
So I would imagine out here, it might be a little different than I'm used to, because with Auburn and Natick, land was a hot commodity, it was hard to find. So out here, I presume people might even be holding on to these lands because they like to hunt, or they like to walk trails. So, but taxes on them might be a little too much, but they're gonna enjoy their walking as long as they can.
Right, and
So-
some of them have died and left, huge parcels of people that don't know what to do with them or
Right.
whatever.
Like the one at town meeting, like 18 heirs for it, and the town went eminent domain on it because it would have been impossible to figure out.
Oh, was that the last, yeah?
Yeah, so I'm not saying something like that with these, but
Right.
yeah, I've been through the process. Yeah.
Excellent. No, because sometimes it abuts existing open space,
Yeah.
or has, like you said, parking or access
Mhm.
potential, and instead of just putting it on the market and thinking somebody might bid on it,
Right,
it helps the town if they're proactive, so that's great.
agree.
I contacted Steve Zisk a couple months ago about, like, if he's at a meeting and he sees something that might be, accessible from a development to hook up with something else at Becky's recommendation. But he said he would.
I would like to see the plans and developments and stuff like that pass through the Open Space Committee to see if there is a possible, trail connections that could be made or established.
It's a great point.
I would-
In Natick, we made sure that that was part of the site plan review with the planning board. We try to obtain a recommendation from Open Space Committee in advance. Or it was a requirement for them to, if there was a trail, they had to connect it, no matter what. Even if it just went to the street,
Yep.
they had to make a connection.
So I would like to see that here.
Yeah.
Well, so how can we make that happen?
You could write it into the planning board subdivision rules and regulations, or go to town meeting and make it a zoning bylaw.
But I think here, if it's a zoning bylaw, it needs to have a hearing in advance and all that.
No, if it's a criteria
Oh,
of special
criteria,
permit,
okay.
then it doesn't need a public hearing, but it's not that every application would require it. Some site plans don't technically need a public hearing, but if it's a requirement of the plan that needs to be submitted, it would automatically be shown on the plans at that first public hearing. Some of those things are waivable. Sometimes developers might not wish to do that, might ask for a waiver, but if it's at least an opportunity to get that examined with every project, would be worth it.
What were the two things that you mentioned that could be, how that could be
It's
done?
planning board subdivision rules and regulations. They can put it right into their regulations for any definitive subdivision of land, like when they build a new roadway and put houses on it. Or a commercial one, same general idea. Or you could do it into the zoning bylaws as a criteria of special permits or site plan review.
Can you get us language
Sure.
or help us shepherd us through that? Because
Yeah,
we don't usually go to planning board meetings, and
understood.
that would be great.
Yeah, well, it is something that I can certainly bring up at future meetings. I understand that this, what is it, 40-something% state forest? More than that?
Yeah, at least a third of the town,
Yeah.
third plus,
But
6,000 acres, I think.
I agree with your point, that should be something considered on all applications. I'm sure there's a vast trail network already here, and when someone develops a property and they end a trail and they don't realize it, that's
Yep.
generally not good. So the quick way to do it is the planning board subdivision rules and regulations, because you could just pitch the change to them. You can vote whether or not to accept it at any meeting in their every 2-week interval.
Right.
The zoning bylaw does have to go to town meeting. We do that twice a
Yeah.
year.
But so if we pitched it to the planning board first, and
Mhm.
if they didn't accept the recommendation, then we could go to town meeting as an alternative. Okay. That would be great.
So,
All right. We need a secretary, but so far we've got Becky, so. You want to be the official secretary?
if you want to call me that, I'm doing it anyways.
All right. All in favor of having Becky a secretary?
You need a formal motion and second.
We could have a motion first.
Yeah.
I move that Becky, nominate Becky for the secretary of the Open Space Committee.
I'll second it. You can second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Can I
You can't. vote.
favor
Yeah.
myself?
Yeah. All right.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Another new job.
Well, it's,
Yeah.
I take notes anyways, so.
Yeah.
Minutes don't have to be a transcription like they are in court. They can be very generalized.
Thank you.
The beauty is you can watch this on the video, though, and
That's where
which-
you can
refresh.
get away with it. If there wasn't video, you got a line item it. But
Yeah.
because there's video, you can generalize it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any previous business we want to talk about? Okay, the public, DCR public hearing we want to talk about, right?
Yes.
I did not.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is Commonwealth property, and I want to know more about what we know about their plan.
I have, I'm sure I still have a copy of the plan that they had sent me last year.
So I'm just going to back up. Becky is the president of the Bay State Trail Riders Association.
Okay.
And so she has been on top of this possibility that they were thinking of.
Paving it, yes.
All right.
And then all of a sudden it disappeared, at least to my knowledge, it disappeared.
Yep.
And then a friend of mine sent me this, so I don't know.
I know, I didn't,
You hadn't seen it?
no, I had not seen it until you sent that to me.
Hmm.
They play games, but neither here nor there, but a little bit more background on this, Matt. The sections that they've improved in Franklin and Bellingham way back when, and they're still working, they're doing some more sections, and actually I've got the plans for another section they're doing behind the school, from the Route 126 bridge behind the school. That is all with a stabilized soil surface that is ADA compliant. Because way back when I had heard that they were going to pave it, and I called them up and chatted with them, because this would not be in existence, this railroad bed, if it wasn't for our organization, because it was our organization that worked to get this preserved. And we really kind of like it as horseback riders. So I talked to them, DCR, about can we use some type of soil stabilizer? Because I did a bunch of research on it, and I said there are some that are ADA compliant. I says, this way here, everyone gets to enjoy the trail as it is, and expecting a big fight, I was really surprised that they said, no, that's a really good idea. So you've got all of Franklin and Bellingham that they're doing. A current section that they're doing is also going to be that same surface. You go down into Connecticut, which turns into the airline trail in Connecticut, and all the sections that they've improved down there is stone dust. So why in the world, in the absolute smack dab middle, that they decide they want to pave it?
So ultimately, I don't know if you know this, but because Douglas overlaps Connecticut and Rhode Island, so we're the tri-state, and that point is the southern trailhead for the mid-state trail. You can start there and hike on a trail all the way across Massachusetts.
Yep.
But then you also have the airline coming in, and you have the Southern New England Trunkline Trail that then goes from Douglas all the way to Franklin. I was on the Bellingham section yesterday at, I think it was Lake Street. There's a basically short apron that is paved.
Yeah, it's because of the incline.
Because of the slope.
Yep.
The rest is that surface that is totally firm, totally fine, all the way up to Prospect Street.
So it doesn't need to be maintained after it's pretty, it's like a little bit, but not,
Washouts
there's
and
a-
such.
I don't think there's any.
Yeah, no degrading yet.
I'm sure eventually down the road there will be
Right.
some, but it's just that this is a rural area.
Pavement needs,
I-
But they can bike on it, that, like you said,
Yeah.
it's ADA compliant, they can walk their dogs, everything. It was a little icy even when I was out there last January, but it was icier on the paved section. So I don't understand where they're getting this demand even for this.
No idea, but I know the public hearing's December 7th. I would kind of like to see if like the Open Space Committee or the Board of Selectmen or the town of Douglas to put their 2 cents worth in, because I know Kevin Morse, when I had touched base with him way back when, said, we don't want that paved.
Is that what they're proposing, paving?
Yeah,
Well,
10-foot paved path with a
path for the horses, yeah, on the
with a
side.
5-foot section for horseback riding, which regulates us to riding single file.
I've never ridden a horse, so I do understand that there's a big difference on a horse walking on pavement versus dirt. Right, and one of them's much better for the horse. I assume that's.
Natural
dirt?
surface,
Okay.
yes. Because that's all we would be doing is walking on the pavement. There, you wouldn't be wanting to go any faster than that.
So I thought.
But if it's paved, I need to understand, what's the plan for the winter? Because tons of people cross-country ski on that trail, and if you're saying you need to pave it for other people to access it, that destroys the skiing. Whereas now, the way it is now, I mean, they need to grade it some of the time, because the ATVs that get right leave modals, and it's really uneven, but I just think paving would exacerbate the problem.
It makes you wonder, what are they trying to accommodate for paving versus dirt? The only thing I could think of right off the gate was a wheelchair.
Right. And to get to the trail, you got to go over lots of hard scrabble stuff on
Right.
another trail
And then
to
this
get to
just-
the
I
pavement.
see what you're saying, and then this just starts as pavement in Douglas.
In the middle of nowhere, yeah.
I see.
Well, and
It's
then
like a
they're saying it goes
landing
to Oxford,
strip.
and then it stops there. So I don't know,
Yeah, they're not even going to get into, I don't think they're going to get into, yeah, they're going as far as the Connecticut line
To
to the
Depot.
Depot Street.
Seems.
It is tricky to ride your bike on that trail with the little, the rocks that are between the, in the old days. But your solution of paving with, a natural material would cover that up.
but the stone dust is beautiful. the way
Yeah,
they
either of those are,
Fixed it in Bellingham. It's
Yep,
just
and some of the places on the railroad bed that we had, the cinders, and there were holes and stuff like that were filled in with processed gravel, and it's held up fine. And everything.
Yeah.
That's packed down to a nice surface.
Well, I'm definitely going to attend this. So, I hope that helps.
Well, to Becky's point, we're probably not gonna have another meeting between now and then. And the tricky part is that when they have a Zoom meeting, a hearing electronically, it's like, nobody goes back and watches the record. So we need to have a letter.
Written
We need
comment.
to have written comments. And so, but I don't know, did they say that there's, the plan is available anywhere, or?
It doesn't, but I presume that if we email this gentleman, we can get a copy. So I can try to get that. Comments can be submitted online in advance.
But we need to see, well, basically, I don't know. From my perspective, I don't want it paid, period.
Agreed. I haven't even seen it yet, and I don't want to pay it.
So, Matt, if you could also find out what, this is a hearing, and then when do they close the hearing, what's the next steps? Because I agree with Becky that we should go to the board of selectmen and say we also want a letter from them saying.
Yep.
we need
Yeah,
to agree.
you have till Wednesday, December 28th to, the deadline for receipt for comments.
oh, interesting.
I'd like to sneak this.
Like you're going to read those, yeah. But
I think they meet on, let's sneak this on as a discussion item with the selectmen. I think they meet on the 7th, is it Tuesdays they typically meet? Same day as this.
yeah.
Mm,
Yep.
Yep,
That's the next meeting?
I think so.
they planned that.
Actually, they don't meet
But that's
tonight, do they? I think that's a no, so they would meet next week, if that's true. We'll find out. Might be a different schedule for holidays. I'm gonna talk to Matt Wojcik after this. Ask him about it. Thank you for bringing this to my attention.
Yep. And after I had found out about this, and then I did a quick little survey, because every time I went out riding, I asked the people that I ran into out there, I didn't bias the question one way or the other, and I just said, this trail that you're on, I says, would you rather see it kept natural surface or paved? That's what I asked. And most people, one person said, no, I want it paved. And she said, no, actually, no, I wouldn't, because I like seeing the horses out here. And one lady walking out there with her dog, she goes, I don't want this paved. She goes, the asphalt's going to get too hot for the dog in the summertime.
Great.
But everyone said no in my little informal survey. So I'm like, okay, the sentiment here is, by everybody using that, is to keep it natural surface.
So the board doesn't, according to the posting, doesn't meet again until the 21st of December.
Okay.
Wow.
That's okay, it's enough time. They could still submit their comment by the 28th.
Yep.
But, have you talked to Carrie about this at all?
No, I have not.
Have you met the, he's the district
He's the
supervisor?
regional supervisor. He used to be the Douglas State Forest supervisor, but now he's a regional supervisor.
For which agency?
Department of Conservation and Recreation, DCR.
Okay.
For Lake and the Forest.
You kind of our representative for the town?
No, what's the,
Chuck.
The new
Snow.
guy, yeah, Charles.
I can ask
Charles
him.
Stone.
John Stone is the
Call him Chuck.
park supervisor.
He doesn't
Barry
like Chuck?
Vandenacker is the
He doesn't like
regional
Chuck?
We call him
district
Chuck.
supervisor.
I do.
Okay.
We just know Carrie, so. he's like
I know
the
Chuck
person
pretty
all the time.
well, too. I walk my dog every day down there, so
Yeah.
I can pop in and ask him about it, where it's going, why it's going.
Right.
They may not even know. There's so many
Right.
times that things are happening that they're not even in the loop on.
Yeah. He
So,
should. He's very with it, though. He's great.
I'd be curious to see if they send him a copy of the plans, the
Yeah.
design plan, if it's the same ones that they sent out to me ages ago.
Yeah, I got this notice from someone who was on the North Shore. So I have not seen it anywhere local.
Well, I got it posted on Facebook yesterday. I haven't got it posted on Douglas Dynamics, but I got it on the Bay State page, and just telling everyone to share it. And so and I also sent in a thing, so to the Tribune, Uxbridge Times, and
Oh, good.
Town Crier, to get that published in the paper to spread the word. So I'm pushing it.
Yeah, all that work.
So, but share it wherever you can.
Yep.
May I keep these? These copies, thank you.
Do you have an email so we can,
I do. I'd be happy to give that to you.
I know it.
I got business cards, I'll just give them to you.
oh, awesome.
That's what I
Yeah.
I love business cards. And I can lose them
Yeah.
after I enter them.
Yeah. But then don't lose your phone. All right, well, that sounds good. Any new business besides, well, that's new. But that's enough for tonight, probably. We try not to overload ourselves. It's been 6 months since, we did meet in
I don't have
August.
anything else on the agenda, so.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, in the brief time you've been here in town, and from the open space perspective, what, do you see anything or anything jump out at you that would be great for us to work on, or as an addition to
Sure.
our, and we have a couple of things that we'd love to do, but.
I do have something I'm going to be asking for support for. There's notice that we don't have any limits to clear cutting or deforestation in large commercial and industrial projects. If, for example, a 100-acre property wanted to do solar or large-scale development of some sort, there's no limits to clearing. They could wipe out 100 acres immediately.
Yeah.
Now, I'm not a big fan of that. That's habitat displacement, resource area destruction. I mean, clear cutting, you're talking about relocating species in the blink of an eye. Obviously, they got to do their due diligence for vernal pools, wetlands, and all that stuff, habits of conservation, but one of the things I'll be doing is writing a deforestation section into the solar bylaws and to possible planning board regulations for subdivision development. For example, if someone's building a new roadway, often they like to clear all the house lots at the same time. And they do it all at once. And it's a travesty, in my opinion. So recently we approved one there that all they were allowed to clear was the limits of the roadway, the right-of-way, and the stormwater management areas. And as they release lots down the line, they'll clear those at that time. You gotta give habitat a chance to displace.
Right.
This is a small-scale example, but I cut like 20 trees down in my house a few years ago, and soon thereafter, my house is infested with box elder beetles. Now, those things are harmless, okay, but they just cling to the side of your house because they love the sun. When you take down that many pine trees, they gotta find a place to go. So, that's a small-scale example. I mean, you never know when you're clearing 100 acres and you just cleared out a bear cave, for example. And so, at some point, when I pitch that to either town meeting or the planning board, depending on where we want to put it in the regulations, I will be asking for a lot of support from this committee.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah, we have a 44-acre solar farm down the street from me, and
Was it all woods before?
yeah,
It's
right
so
along
sad.
Wallem Lake.
It's so sad. And they come in saying, this is an environmentally friendly project, and then they level the forest to do it. And in 20 years, when those solar arrays are all done,
They're going to your house, yeah.
well, it's a cleared property, and then someone's gonna buy it to do what? Build houses.
Develop it, yep.
So it's scary in that regard, and I'd like solar to be limited to existing open space. And when I say open space, I mean open, no trees. Whether it's a farm that's looking for solar, or a field, or a former landfill, I'm just gonna do one of those. Should be limited to those. I mean, we shouldn't see clear cutting for solar. It doesn't make any sense.
It's too important.
I will advocate for solar. I know it's a good way of clean energy. I get that, but not the level of forest to do it.
It's catchy because you don't know where you're going to get rid of the solar panels in 20 years either.
For sure.
I have it, but
And I see those all as roads and houses in 20 years, unfortunately.
yeah. Yeah, that's good insight.
That's at least one thing I picked up on in 5 weeks.
No, that's huge, because I know in Northbridge, right off of Church Street, they went in,
And cleared the whole site.
there wasn't a seedling left.
Right.
There wasn't a blade of grass. And then
Right.
all of a sudden, there was this pandemonium that the state forester blinked or something, and so now it's all houses. But just everything was taken,
Yeah.
every single thing. So,
Diverted
Makes it easier for
streams
them.
and
yeah.
totally resculpted the whole area. It's just, yeah.
Breaks my heart. Hate seeing that. Happened in my town twice.
Yeah.
Whole hillside that you could see from everywhere. Used to be woods and a big old house on the top, and then just nothing. Solar. That's it. Just glare from the hill. So,
it's one thing if, a tornado through Brimfield takes it or whatever and clear cuts.
I lived in Southbridge when that happened.
Oh, really?
In Rosemead.
Yeah.
I was very close to that.
Yeah.
It was on my birthday, too.
Oh, really? Wow.
Oopsie.
Candles and everything. Blew out the candles
They blew
on the
the
cake.
candle right out.
Impressive. All right. Well, we have enough to go on for now. I'll maybe get the group together again on email and see where we are in a week from now,
Sure.
after the holiday, after we've recovered from Turkey. This came from the state, if anybody wants to look at it. all about conservation, and if anyone wants to take it home with them, it was in our box.
I'd seen that we can actually order that.
Yeah.
Or get a copy of it, so,
There might be a PDF online too.
yep.
I like handbooks.
There's some great, especially for forested landowners, there's some great resources out there right now.
Yeah.
Great opportunity.
Yeah, Lisa's on the Metacomet Land Trust too, so that helps. All right. Well,
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Nice to meet you.
You all.
all right. And, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I vote to end the meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's over.